Right now, somewhere, a person is bringing soup to a sick friend, not realizing they are repeating something ancient. 40,000 years ago, that exact act of care decided who lived and who died. No hospital, no surgeon, no painkillers and no X-ray to even see the break. So how did ancient humans survive a broken bone when one bad fall could end everything? And the clue is hidden inside a single broken bone. In the wild, a shattered thigh bone is a death sentence because the injured animal simply gets left behind. Yet we keep finding ancient femurs that broke and then healed. Today we are going to decode what that healed bone really means, step by step. The biggest bone in your body and why breaking it should have killed you. The someone who stayed, carried water, and shared meat with a person who could not hunt. The invisible months of being set, fed, and protected with no medicine at all. The real killer that was never the broken bone itself. And the quiet question that mattered more than any splint. The forest medicines that helped wounds stay clean before anyone knew bacteria existed. Every part of this is written into bones we can still examine today. Stay with me to the very end, because the last one will change how you hear the word kindness forever. But first, you have to understand why that healed bone is so impossible in nature. Now hold that thought. Because the bone has to heal straight, or you limp for the rest of your short life. You wake up. It is roughly 40,000 years ago. The ground is cold. The fire is a pile of gray ash. You are somewhere in what will one day be called France, though nobody has named anything yet. Your whole world is maybe 30 people. You know every face. You know every voice. There is no hospital. There is no doctor. There is no word for doctor. You stand. You stretch. Your shoulder aches from yesterday. Today, the group is moving toward the river. The reindeer cross there. Good hunting means everyone eats. Bad hunting means everyone is hungry. There is no in-between. You walk along a slope of loose scree. Rock the size of fists, all of it sliding. You have done this 1,000 times. Your bare feet read the ground better than your eyes do. But today the slope is wet. Today your foot rolls. Today the world tips sideways. You fall. Your leg folds under a falling rock, and you hear it. Not feel it first. Hear it. A deep crack, sharp enough that everyone nearby understands what happened. Then the pain arrives, sudden and impossible to ignore. Your lower leg is bent where no leg should bend. The shin bone, the tibia, has broken clean through. You scream. The whole group turns. Within seconds, people are running towards you, not away. Why is that worth noticing? Because in the animal world, the injured get abandoned. Here, the injured get surrounded. So what happens now? With no plaster, no painkiller, no X-ray to see inside you, how does a person in the Stone Age fix a snapped bone? Let us slow this down. Let us watch the whole process, step by step, with the actual materials they had. First, they have to know what is wrong. Then they had to read your body. They could not see the bone, so they looked at the shape. A leg that bends in the middle has a broken bone. A leg that is twisted wrong has a broken bone. They felt along the skin for the sharp edge underneath. They learned this the way everyone learned everything back then, by watching it happen over and over for 100,000 years. Now compare. Now you would get a machine that fires radiation through your flesh and prints a picture of your skeleton. The first X-ray was taken in 1895 by Wilhelm Röntgen. He photographed his wife's hand. She saw her own bones and said she had seen her death. People used to fear the picture. Now you wait 40 minutes for one in a cold hallway. But 40,000 years ago, the picture was your friend's hands and their memory. They had seen this leg before, mine's on someone else, maybe on themselves. Then they had to stop the leg from moving. This is the whole game. A broken bone heals only if the two ends stay still and stay lined up. Move it and it heals crooked. Move it badly and it does not heal at all. So how do you hold a screaming person's leg perfectly still with nothing from a store? You use the forest. You use what is around you. Then they grabbed straight branches, 2 of them, 1 for each side of the leg. They stripped the bark. They padded the wood with moss or soft hide so it would not cut into the skin. They bound it all with strips of sinew or plant fiber or strips of leather, a splint, the oldest medical tool there is. Was this guesswork? Not entirely. We have proof people did this. In Egypt, archaeologists found splints made of bark, padded with linen, still wrapped around broken arms in mummies over 5,000 years old. The splint was already old news by then. It was already ancient. Now you get a fiberglass cast in a color you choose. Your friends sign it with markers. You complain it itches. You cannot scratch inside it. Back then the splint itched too. Nobody signed it. There were no markers and no alphabet. But before any splint goes on, there is a worse step. The bone ends have to be pulled back into place. This is called setting the bone, and it is exactly as bad as it sounds. If the ends are overlapping, someone has to pull your leg, long and hard and straight, until the pieces slide back where they belong. There was no anesthetic. Let me be clear about how rough this part was. Several people would hold you down. One person would grip your foot and pull steadily while another guided the bone by feel. You would feel far too much of it. You would fight them. They would not stop because stopping halfway is worse than never starting. What did you have for the pain? Not nothing. Plants. Willow bark contains salicin. Your body turns salicin into something close to the active part of aspirin. People chewed willow bark for pain thousands of years before any chemist named the molecule. The Sumerians wrote about it. The Egyptians wrote about it. Hippocrates wrote about it around 400 BCE. Did it kill the pain of bone setting? Nothing back then truly could. But it took the edge off the days that followed. So did poppy in some regions. So did simply having people hold your hand and stay close while you shook. Now you get a needle in your arm and you count backward from 10 and wake up fixed. The first surgery under ether was in 1846 in Boston at Massachusetts General Hospital. Before that day, every surgery on earth happened on a person who was wide awake. Think about that the next time you complain about a waiting room. So the bone is set. The splint is on. Now comes the hardest part of all. Bone takes weeks to knit. A big bone can take months. And during those months, you cannot hunt. You cannot gather. You cannot carry your share. You are, in the cold math of survival, a cost. So why did they feed you anyway? Here is where the bones tell the truth. We keep finding ancient skeletons with injuries so severe the person could not have survived alone. A man at Shanidar Cave in Iraq, a Neanderthal, lived with a withered arm, a damaged leg, and likely blindness in one eye. He lived for years like that. He could not have fed himself. Someone fed him. Around 50,000 years ago. So the kindness was not an accident. It was a pattern. It repeats across continents and across species of human. The injured stayed alive because the group decided they were worth keeping alive. That is not instinct. That is choice. Let us go back to your leg. Weeks pass. The group cannot stay still forever. The reindeer move. The seasons turn. So how do you travel when you cannot walk? You get carried. Then they made a litter. Two long poles with hides stretched between them. Two people lift the front, two lift the back, and you ride between them like awkward cargo. It is slow. It holds the whole group back. They do it anyway, because tomorrow it could be them on the litter. Now you call an ambulance. A vehicle arrives with flashing lights and trained people and a soft bed on wheels. The first organized ambulances rolled out of war. Napoleon's surgeon Dominique Larrey built flying ambulances around 1793 to pull the wounded off battlefields fast. Before that, the wounded waited where they fell. Now a stranger drives across a city to lift you off the ground. Quick pause, subscribe, and tell me in the comments which ancient story I should decode next. While you heal, infection is the real killer. A broken bone is bad. A broken bone that pierces the skin is a death gate. Once the skin is open, dirt gets in, and dirt carries the things that rot you from the inside. They did not know about bacteria. Antony van Leeuwenhoek would not see the little animals under his microscope until the 1670s. But they knew somehow that some leaves on a wound helped and some did not. How did they fight infection without knowing it existed? With the medicine cabinet of the forest. Honey, where they could find it, kills bacteria. Honey draws water out of microbes and starves them. People packed wounds with honey for thousands of years, and only later did we learn why it worked. Some plants have natural compounds that slow infection. People learned the right ones by burying the people who used the wrong ones. Now you swallow a small pill, and an army of bacteria dies inside you. Alexander Fleming found penicillin in 1928 by accident because he left a dish out and mold grew on it. One messy lab changed every century after it. You take that miracle for granted. Your ancestors would have worshipped that pill. Back in the cave, you are bored out of your mind. Weeks of lying still. What did you do all day with a leg you could not use? You talked. You taught. The injured became the teachers. While the strong hunted, the broken ones sat with the children and the elders and passed down everything. How to nap a flint. Which berries kill. Where the herd crossed last winter. The wounded carried the library. Is that a small thing? It is not. A group that kept its injured kept its memory. The knowledge did not walk off and die on the hunt. It sat by the fire, leg in a splint, and it taught. You watch your leg every day. Then you read the swelling. Less swelling means healing. More swelling and heat and a bad smell means trouble. You had no thermometer, so you used the back of someone's hand on your forehead. Fever was a feeling, not a number. Hot to the touch meant the body was fighting something it might lose. Picture the bone being set. The two ends have to be pulled apart and lined up. That is the worst pain a body can feel. And you are awake for all of it. There is no clean anesthetic. So the village holds you down. Many hands. One person pulls the foot. One steadies the knee. One holds your shoulders. And you scream, and it is over, and the bone sits a little straighter than before. We have skeletons that show this. Bones that were broken and then healed in good alignment. That alignment did not happen by accident. Someone pulled. Someone knew which way to pull. In 2024, a doctor would call that traction and reduction. 40,000 years ago, it had no name. It was the thing the old woman did. The thing she learned from the old woman before her. Now zoom out from the splint and the fire. What did a broken leg really mean to these people? It meant time. Weeks of it. Months of it. A leg takes 6 to 12 weeks to knit in a healthy adult, and that is true today and was true then. So for 3 months you ate food you did not gather. You drank water you did not fetch. You stayed warm by a fire you did not feed. Someone carried all of it to you. Is that not the whole story of being human? We are the animal that waits for the slow ones. A wolf with a broken leg in the wild has a few hard days. A wildebeest with a broken leg has a few hard minutes. The herd moves on. The land does not pause for the injured. But the human band paused. Again and again, across continents, across 100,000 years, we paused. You can see it in the bones. Healed fractures everywhere. Old people with worn joints who clearly could not hunt and were fed anyway. People with conditions that needed lifelong care who lived long lives. One famous skeleton found at Shanidar Cave in Iraq belonged to a man who lived around 50,000 years ago. He had a withered arm. He may have been blind in one eye. He had old healed injuries all over. And he lived to be old. He could not have done that alone. Someone shared the food. Someone watched his back. Someone decided he was worth keeping. That decision is older than farming. Older than the wheel. Older than any written word. The choice to carry the broken one is one of the first human things we ever did. So when your leg snapped, the real medicine was not the splint. The splint was just wood. The real medicine was the answer to one quiet question. Will they keep me? And the answer over and over was yes. Think about what that yes costs. Food is scarce. Winter is coming. Every mouth matters. And still the band chose to feed someone who for a season gave nothing back. Maybe because they remembered being carried once. Maybe because they knew their turn would come. A hunter today is the cripple tomorrow. Everyone breaks eventually. So the splint was a promise. We hold each other up. Not because it is easy. Because it is who we are. You lie by the fire with your leg bound to 2 straight sticks. You cannot run. You cannot hunt. You cannot fetch your own water. And nobody leaves. That is the part the bones cannot fully show but quietly prove. The kindness is in the healing. A bone that mended needed time, and time was a gift the whole group paid for. Now your leg heals in a clinic with a clean cast and a follow-up appointment. Then your leg healed in a circle of people who decided you mattered more than the miles they could have walked without you. Both are care. One just had to be invented from scratch, with sticks and mud and stubborn love, by people whose names we will never know. So the next time you snap a bone, and you will, because we all do, remember the long line of hands behind your cast. The flint setters. The mud packers. The hand on the forehead checking for fever. They had no hospitals. They had each other. And somehow, against the cold and the predators and the odds, that was enough to get a species through. You are here because someone, 50,000 years ago, refused to walk on without their friend. The splint rotted away. The bone turned to stone. But the choice it stood for is still in you. If this moved you, hit subscribe and comment the next ancient mysteries you want decoded. It is in every blanket brought to a sick room. Every meal dropped off at a grieving door. Every hand that reaches for someone who cannot stand on their own. We have always been the animal that waits. And as long as we keep waiting for each other, we will be all right.